The lace sleeves were supposed to shimmer like moonlight. That's what Ada had imagined since she was 13. What she and her late mother used to whisper about late at night under mosquito nets and candlelight. But now, standing barefoot on the cold cement floor of her stepmother's house, all she saw was an empty hanger. The wedding dress was gone. "En? You're just standing there like statue," her stepmother snapped, waving a wooden spoon from the kitchen. "Better go and help your sister zip up. Her fitting starts in 10 minutes. Ada blinked. Her what? Fitting? For the gown. You think we'll let that fine, expensive material waste on someone like you? Ah, charity begins at home. Oluchi is the one with shape and status. You're just there." Her voice was oil poured on a fire. Ada's breath caught in her throat. That dress wasn't just fabric. It was the last thing her mother had secretly saved up for before the cancer took her. A local designer had sewn it by hand, beads stitched like blessings. Every fold meant to carry love into Ada's new life. And now, they gave it to Oluchi. Oluchi, her stepsister, who wasn't even engaged, who laughed behind Ada's back, who mocked her for being too local, too soft, too poor, the one their father favored, the one everyone called the beauty of the family. Ada stepped quietly into the bedroom, where Oluchi stood before the mirror twirling. "Oh, you're here," Oluchi said with a smirk. "Hope you're not crying again. It's not a good look for a maid of honor." Ada stared at the dress, the one meant for her, and something inside her finally snapped. But the tears didn't come. Not today. She turned and walked out, past her father who wouldn't meet her eyes, past the aunties who came to help decorate, past the whispers, the pity, the silence, all the way into the tiny room her mother once called hers. The air smelled faintly of eucalyptus and old powder. There, inside an old wooden trunk, wrapped in soft white cloth, was the only thing they hadn't touched. Her mother's burial wrapper. It was made of thick, rich osso oak, deep maroon with gold embroidery. Back then, people said it was too fine for the dead, but her mother had chosen it herself. "When I go," she once told Ada, "wrap me in strength." Ada ran her fingers over the cloth, then pulled it close to her chest. They took her dignity, they took her voice, but they wouldn't take this. She would wear it. She didn't care if people laughed. But what she didn't know was this. Buried deep in one of the folds, sewn with care and secrecy by her mother's own hands, was a note. And that note would change everything. The wrapper felt heavier than Ada remembered. Not just in weight, but in memory, in meaning. As she unfolded it on her narrow bed, the gold threading shimmered like a secret waiting to be told. She smoothed her hands over the fabric, trying not to cry. Not out of pain, those tears were used up, but out of quiet defiance. If she was going to be humiliated, she would carry it with dignity. If she had nothing left to give, she would wear what was already hers. Then something tugged. A thread along the hem caught her finger. It looked thicker than the others. Her brows furrowed. Gently, she turned it inside out and found a tiny seam, carefully stitched by hand. The kind of seam no tailor would notice. The kind of seam a mother makes with trembling fingers and a reason. With shaking hands, Ada fetched a razor blade from her drawer. She sliced the seam gently, heart pounding like wedding drums. Inside, folded like a secret prayer, was a small, discolored envelope. Her name was written on it in her mother's script, thin and lovely, like vines on a wall. Tears welled in her eyes, but she didn't let them fall. She opened the envelope. Inside was a short letter and a rectangular folded paper, a bank slip. "My Ada, if you're reading this, it means life has taken what it had no right to steal. I couldn't leave you gold or lands, but I leave you this strength, and a little money I saved in secret. For your future, for your freedom. Use it only when they try to make you feel small. Because you were never small, my daughter. You were born to take up space." Ada sat frozen for a moment, staring at the slip. It was a fixed deposit receipt, 2.8 million naira, signed 5 years ago. She could barely breathe. Her mother, a widow, sick and frail, had been saving while people called her poor, while Ada went to school on borrowed books and leftover uniforms. This money could pay rent, start a business, change everything. And yet, Ada folded the note carefully, tucked it back into the envelope, and slid it into the hidden seam. Not yet. She wasn't going to use it to run. She was going to walk down that aisle with her head high, and in her mother's cloth. Let them whisper. Let them laugh. She would honor the woman who wrapped her in love, even in death. The next morning, the compound buzzed like a disturbed beehive. Chairs were being arranged, canopies set. The decorators were covering the walls in white and peach satin. Her wedding day had come. Ada stood alone in the corner of the room, adjusting the folds of the maroon wrapper into a graceful, queenly drape. No makeup artist. No bridesmaids. No father knocking on the door to say, "You look beautiful, my daughter." Just her. And her mother's cloth. Then Oluchi burst into the room. She froze when she saw Ada. "You're seriously wearing that?" She laughed. "You look like you're going to a funeral, not a wedding." Ada smiled, calm as still water. "Maybe I am," she said softly. Oluchi rolled her eyes and slammed the door. But when Ada stepped outside just moments later, something strange happened. The crowd turned. Their voices dropped. Faces shifted. Even the groom stared, stunned, because no one had ever seen a bride like this. Ada stepped onto the compound like a storm disguised in silence. The maroon and gold wrapper clung to her like royalty. Her shoulders were bare, wrapped in dignity instead of lace. Her hair was tied back in a simple bun, adorned only with the same ivory comb her mother wore in the hospital the night before she died. She didn't wear jewelry. She didn't need it, because in that moment, she was glowing in something no money could buy: legacy. Gasps floated through the air like confetti. "Is that? That's not the dress. Who wears wrapper to their own wedding? She looks powerful." Even the photographer lowered his camera for a moment, unsure whether to capture her or bow. Oluchi stood at the center of the compound, wearing the white gown that once belonged to Ada, lace dripping with pearls, makeup done to perfection. But for the first time, she looked ordinary, like a well-decorated chair beside a throne. She squinted as Ada walked forward. "Are you trying to ruin today? You think this stunt makes you look holy?" Ada didn't flinch. She met her stepsister's eyes with calm steel. "You can't ruin what was never yours." Before Oluchi could fire back, someone cleared their throat. It was the groom. Tall, composed, dressed in cream agbada with gold trimming. But his face had changed. He was staring at Ada like he was seeing her for the very first time. His best man nudged him. "Bro, is this still happening?" Didn't answer. His eyes were locked. The crowd began to murmur louder, unsure whether this was fashion rebellion, family drama, or a cultural statement no one had been told about. Then Ada's stepmother, Mama Gladys, stormed out from behind the catering tent. "Are you mad, Ada? What are you doing here in that burial cloth like a cursed child? People are watching." "Oh." Ada turned slowly. "Yes, let them watch." Mama Gladys scoffed. "This is my husband's compound. If I say you're not the bride, then why does your husband look ashamed?" Ada cut in. All eyes turned to Chief Okonkwo, who stood by the far wall, suddenly small in his starched white kaftan. He couldn't meet Ada's eyes. His shame was thick enough to taste. Ada climbed the platform where the officiant stood, eyes still on her. She faced the crowd, raised her chin, and gave a small, graceful nod. A few claps started. Then more. Then a thunder of applause. Someone shouted, "This is what a bride should look like." Oluchi's mouth dropped open. Mama Gladys hissed, grabbing Chief Okonkwo by the sleeve. "Say something. Do something." But before he could respond, a silver Lexus pulled into the compound. The driver stepped out and opened the back door. A tall woman in a green lace blouse stepped out. The crowd fell silent again. Ada's eyes narrowed. She didn't recognize her, but she saw her father stiffen. Then the woman spoke loud and clear. "I'm here for the bride. I have something that belongs to her." The woman's heels clicked softly against the pavement as she approached the platform. Her geli was perfectly tied, emerald green with golden edges, shimmering in the sunlight like royalty, had arrived uninvited. Ada glanced at her father. Chief Okonkwo's face was pale now, his hands twitching slightly at his side. Mama Gladys whispered something sharp into his ear, but he didn't respond. The woman stopped a few feet from Ada and gave a polite nod. "I'm sorry to interrupt," she said. Her voice was smooth, confident. "But I couldn't let this wedding continue without the truth." The crowd went still. Ada's chest tightened. "Who are you?" The woman's lips curved into something between a smile and a sorrow. "My name is Mrs. Mabel Uduak. I was your mother's lawyer and close friend. And before she passed, she gave me something to deliver. But only if today turned out like this." She reached into her purse and pulled out a brown envelope sealed with wax. "I came because your mother believed this day might come, that they would try to erase you, replace you, humiliate you. She said if anyone dared to take what was yours, this should be given back." Ada took the envelope with trembling hands. The weight of it felt different, heavy not just with paper, but with truth. Mrs. Uduak continued, her voice now louder for the whole crowd to hear. "There is a second will. Not the version that was filed with the family, but the original signed and witnessed. It was hidden to protect her daughter." Chief Okonkwo suddenly stepped forward. "That's enough." But the woman didn't flinch. "No, Chief, that's not enough. Your wife took the original will and buried it the day after your first wife's funeral. But I kept a copy and I had it notarized. Because I knew one day your cowardice would cost you." Gasps echoed. Mama Gladys's mouth dropped open. "That's a lie. You can't prove." "It's already in court," Mrs. Uduak snapped. "And your son-in-law, F, helped me file it yesterday, after he saw the dress was missing." All eyes turned to F, who looked at the ground, ashamed. "I didn't know they gave her dress to Oluchi until that night," he said, barely audible. "That wasn't the woman I was supposed to marry. I didn't want to go through with it anymore. I just didn't know how to stop it." Ada stared at him, unsure whether to feel rage or pity. But Mrs. Uduak wasn't done. "The new will names Ada not only as the rightful owner of her mother's estate, but also the sole inheritor of the property this wedding is happening on." The silence was sharp enough to cut stone. "This land, this house, this very compound," she said slowly, turning to the crowd, "belongs to her." Oluchi stumbled back a step. Mama Gladys's hands flew to her chest. Ada stood frozen. This wasn't just justice. This was a homecoming. But just as the applause began to rise again, someone at the back of the crowd shouted, "Wait! What's happening with the groom?" Ada turned and saw F walking toward her. "I need to tell you something, and I don't want to say it here." F stood before Ada, his hands shaking slightly as he reached into his pocket and pulled out the wedding ring box. "I bought this with my own money," he said. "Not your father's, not your stepmother's. I chose it for you." Ada looked at the box but didn't open it. Her voice was steady. "Then why didn't you choose me when it mattered?" F swallowed. "I was afraid." The crowd was still listening. Too many ears, too many eyes. He gestured toward the inside of the house. "Please, can we talk for just a moment? Alone." Ada hesitated. Her eyes flicked to Oluchi, who now stood off to the side, arms folded tightly across her sequined gown like armor cracking at the seams. Mama Gladys was fanning herself furiously. Chief Okonkwo looked like a man whose sins were finally catching up to him. Ada gave a small nod and followed F into the hallway. Inside, the noise dulled. It was just them now, bride and almost groom. He didn't speak right away. Instead, he handed her a folded sheet of paper. "I was going to give you this today. I wrote it last night." She unfolded it. It was a letter. "Ada, I'm sorry. I let your family control everything. The guest list, the dress, even who got to walk down the aisle. I thought marrying you was enough, but now I see I should have protected you. I didn't deserve you then. Maybe I still don't. But I swear, if you give me one more chance, I will never let anyone silence you again. F." Ada folded the letter carefully, placed it back on the table, and looked at him. "You knew what they did to me, and you stayed quiet. I know, he said, and I'm not proud of that. But I didn't love Oluchi. I love you. I always have. She searched his face. Was it true? Or was this just another performance now that her name came with land and legacy? I don't want your guilt, Ada said. And I don't need saving. He stepped forward. Then what do you want? Ada looked him in the eye, her voice soft but fierce. I want to walk back out there and finish what they tried to steal from me. My story. My dignity. My name. He stepped aside, and Ada walked past him, her mother's wrapper still clinging to her like truth. Back outside, the crowd parted again. Mrs. Uduak was waiting, now holding a second document. This is the official court notice, she said, filed and stamped. Ada, as of this morning, the property title has been transferred. Cheers erupted. People who had once looked through her were now looking up to her. But as Ada reached the center of the compound, the DJ's speakers suddenly crackled, and then went silent. The microphone whined, and a breathless voice spoke from the gate. Stop the celebration. This wedding can't go on. I have proof. Proof that changes everything. The crowd gasped again. Everyone turned. A young woman in jeans and a blazer stood by the gate, holding a folder in her hand. Ada narrowed her eyes. She didn't recognize the woman at all. And that made her next words even more chilling. I'm here on behalf of F's real wife. Gasps tore through the air like glass breaking. Real wife? Someone whispered. Ada didn't move. Her feet remained planted on the earth her mother had left behind. Her eyes fixed on the woman at the gate. The young woman stepped forward and lifted the folder high. My name is Barrister Kayamika Ibe, she said, and I represent the legal wife of Mr. Efuma, married 6 months ago in a civil ceremony in Abuja. The crowd erupted into chaos. F's face went pale, lips parted, no words coming out. Oluchi's expression twisted, part betrayal, part confusion, part satisfaction. She wasn't the bride, but at least now she wasn't the only one humiliated. Ada, however, didn't blink. She turned to F. Is it true? He hesitated. It was before I met you, technically. We were separated. It wasn't. Barrister Kayamika cut him off. Not legally separated. And not divorced. In fact, she filed for a divorce last week. After seeing your name on this wedding invitation, the DJ switched off the mic. Silence. Embarrassed silence. Ada slowly stepped forward, her voice calm and sharp. You tried to marry me under false vows. In my mother's home, wearing my future like a costume. And you didn't even have the courage to come clean. F looked broken. Ada, please. She shook her head. You didn't just betray me. You made me almost betray myself. Then she turned to the guests. Her voice rose, not with anger, but with quiet fire. My name is Ada Nkemdalim Okonkwo, daughter of Ifeoma, the woman who built this home with love, who stitched strength into every fold of this wrapper. I was thrown away, replaced, stripped of my voice. But today, I take it all back. She walked up to the altar, picked up the microphone herself. There will be no wedding, she said, but there will be a celebration of every woman who was told she wasn't enough, who had to fight for space in her own life. Some people began clapping, slowly at first, then louder. Mama Gladys had disappeared into the house, her face covered in shame. Chief Okonkwo stood frozen, small in his own land. Mrs. Uduak stepped beside Ada, smiling quietly. Your mother would be proud. Later that evening, the music still played, not for a bride and groom, but for Ada. She danced barefoot in her mother's wrapper, surrounded by women who had once ignored her, but now looked at her with awe. Children ran around her, laughing. Elders nodded. Someone whispered, that girl is fire wrapped in cloth. And as the sun set, casting gold across the compound, Ada sat alone for a moment under the mango tree. She pulled out her mother's note one last time. Read it slowly. You were born to take up space. Ada smiled softly and folded it back. This time, she wasn't wearing a burial cloth. She was wearing a crown. If you enjoyed the story, Please like and subscribe and don't forget to turn on the notification bell. Thank you. We hope to see you in our next video.